Welcome to tutorial 8. We will go through tutorial 8.1 and 8.2 in this session. The tutorial 8 file that you want to open is called EVG, and the instruction asks you to save it as EVG employees. This file is included in the textbook, and you can find it on the class website. So we'll start with EX466. The objective at first is just to write down your name in the first worksheet documentation. So you put down your own name here and the date, and take a quick look at the keys. So the field that we're going to see later on is explained here. So some of these references are American. We will go with the textbook. We see that there are a few tabs. So under worksheet employee data, you can see that there are several rows of data going into row 101. And you can see that this is already formulated as a table, and we will take advantage of this. You can see that if I click on any of the cell to make it active, the table tools table tool option will show up. And then later on we will utilize some other tables such as lookup table. There is the medical plan rates range, the service award payout range, and the dental plan rates that we will take advantage of in 8.2. But first, let's concentrate on the second worksheet, which is called employee data. The employee data, as I mentioned just now, already have been grouped into a Excel table. And we learned in previous tutorial that once you group into Excel table, you can manipulate it much more easily. And one good thing about this is that any changes you make from this point on, you just have to make it on one cell, and the Excel is going to sort of guess your intention at making the changes elsewhere as well. So we'll look at that, and we'll starting with EX466. We will go to step number 3 now. Well, let's move to the right, and you can see that the first two columns, employee ID and the last name, are also moved out of the view. We often want to see some fields and to be making sure that we can correspond the data against these fields. So we want to first make these two columns to be static, and we do that by freezing the pen. So the instruction is that you will click on cell C2, and then you will go to freeze the viewing pen, and you go to first view, and then there is a freeze pens, and you will click on this option. So from this point on, even if you move towards the right, so if you scroll this spreadsheet towards the right, you can see that the first two columns are frozen in place, and you can see the data. Let's move the spreadsheet to the right even further, have a look at the data that's sort of hidden away. You can see as you move to the right, starting from column W, you will see some data. This is going to be used later on in tutorial 8.2 to assign different bonuses to people. And then you have also some data here, like in AA1, in AD1, and in AF1. So we want to open this up a little bit and see what is hidden there. We will refer to these cells, so AA1, AD1, AF1 later on. So let's, in the meantime, scroll the data to the left-hand side and see what the textbook wants us to do. If you can, please do read up on EX467, 468. It is now, the textbook will explain the condition function, and that first function we will use will be the if statement. the if statement will give us two options, and the functions that we will look at right now will then display either of two conditions, if a condition is true or if a condition is false. The examples that we want to follow is in EX469. So we will go to the cell N1 for Nancy 1, and in EX469 is asking you to enter the heading. So we'll use the heading birthday month. And once I hit enter, the Excel is going to interpret that as a wish to extend the table by one column. You can see that the formatting is already done for me. And in N2, so if I click on N2 to make that active, we will go to the insert function button right here, and we will click on that button. And you can see that there are lots of options that you can have. You want to go to, we can look at all of the possibilities, but in this case, we want to just pick the logical option. So the logical option here will narrow down the options, sub-options. We want to use if. So we want to click on if and then click on OK. So this will bring up the arguments table. In the function arguments, we are now ready to enter the check. And the check is to look at D column. So we'll expand this spreadsheet a little bit to the left, and we will see that the birthday column D will be used in this check to see if it matches the specified month that we want to check. In that case, the specified month is going to be in AD1. So AD1 right here has a value of 9, which will correspond to September. We don't actually want to enter that number here, so we'll just want to delete that. So we'll go back to where we were, which is N2, and we'll want to then enter, say, we want to check month function D2, so we'll look at the column D2 and check whether or not it matches AD1. So we are entering AD1 using $AD $1. And you might recall that using $sign will lock this cell into a very specific cell, and it will not change as you copy it over. So that's why we want to use the $sign. Now, this is the condition we want to test. We want to tab down, and if the value is 9, meaning that the Excel goes through the column D, find that it is in September, we want to show the value yes. So we want to say yes if true. If it's not true, then we can simply say nothing. You can see that when I type in yes, it automatically gives me the quotation around yes. So if we want to print nothing, it is better to just use a quotation without any value in it. So that will indicate that I want an empty field to be displayed. Now, I have already entered my condition for checking. So whether or not D, again, let's move back to the D. Whether or not the column D has a month that is correspond to 9, which is in AD1. If it corresponds to 9, which means that if a person is born in the month of September, I want to print out the value yes. If the person is not born in the month of September, I will print nothing. So this will be my value. I'll click on OK. And you can see that the value, the function which I already specified once, is now in every single n column cell. And you can see that wherever the person is born in September, in this case, Johnson was born in September, the condition is going to be, the condition will be met with a comparison function if. So we will then see that some employees will have the birthday yes because it is corresponding to September. So that's the first condition we will enter. The textbook then go into explaining the function and, A and D, and I hope that you will read up on the explanation. But for our purpose, we will concentrate on the example specified in EX473. We want to calculate something called the 401k, and 401k is very specific to the US. It is a way for a company to set up a retirement saving plan for employees. So, and that under the US tax code is under clause 401 bracket K. In this case, the textbook asks us to go to O1 and type in 401 bracket K, company match. So we will follow that. And what this is a way for the company to look at what employees' salary may be, how long they have been in the company, and then they will usually give a percentage of the employee salary in order to encourage this employee to save for retirement. So after we enter the heading, you can see Excel had automatically created another column of table as part of the overall table. And in EX473, step number 2, it wants you to go into O2 as an active cell and clicking on the function, insert function button, where you will look for, again, a logical category and clicking on the function if. So we will then select if, click on OK. So in this case, the logical test is going to be a combination of the if, which is the overall test. But inside, I want to add the function and, A and D. So I'll follow the textbook and type in A and D bracket G2 equal quotation FT, comma, M2 greater or equal to 1, and then M bracket. So the G2 in this case will be looking at the job status right here at G2. If a job status is FT, which is the interpretation of full-time as opposed to part-time, if it's a full-time, then I am going to look at the second function, which is years of service. If the years of service in M2 is greater or equal to 1, meaning that the employee has been with the company for 1 year, then I want to give the employer some money to contribute to her retirement. So if the value is correct, if the person is full-time, and if a person has been with the company for 1 year or more, I would like to multiply her salary by 3%. So that will be I2 multiply 0.03. So I2 is a current salary. Whatever is right here in I2 will be multiplied by 3%. And that will be the amount that the company is going to give under 401 bracket K or 401k saving plan. If a person is not full-time and if the person has not worked over for 1 year, I will not contribute. So I'll put 0 as a false condition. And with these two enter, I'll click on OK. And you can see that some of the employees will have 3% of their salary given to them for saving. Some of the employee will have nothing. So let's look at this particular case. We have an employee that will receive 0 in terms of 401k. Let's have a look at why. So the employee is showing PT, which is part-time, and the employee has worked for more than 1 year. But because the condition that we are entering is A and D, which means that the person must be full-time and have worked more than 1 year. So one of his conditions, meaning the job status, does not match. So that's why the formula has returned a 0. Let's take a look and see if we can find someone else here. So the person here is full-time, FT, but the person has not worked for more than a year in the company. So again, one of these two conditions, full-time and more than 1 year, both conditions were not present. So the contribution for the employment retirement plan is therefore 0. So that's why it is showing 0. And we only enter a formula once in the N2 cell, but because it is a table, the Excel spreadsheet was smart enough to populate all the cells with this function. So if you can see that every single function does have every single cell has this function enter. And the textbook asks you to highlight the entire column and then change it into accounting format. So you just have to go back to home and then change this to accounting. And it will then show, in this case, because the cell width is not sufficient, it will show pound. You just have to double click or drag this to make it bigger, and that will show the entire field. So that brings us to EX474. EX474 also has a table, has a section talking about date diff, D-A-T-E, DIF. So date diff function does calculate the difference between two dates and give you either the difference in month, difference in years, or even a difference in days. This is not used in our tutorial 1 in a concrete way, so we are going to skip it. But if you're interested in calculating the difference between two dates, please read up. Then the textbook goes through the discussions of OR in EX475, 476. I'll encourage you to read up on that discussion. But we will demonstrate now the example listed in EX478, starting there to calculate the salary increase. So we are going to include the function if and the function or in order to figure out how much a person's salary should increase. So you can have a look at that section, and this recording will only show you the step-by-step. So in P1, we want to type salary increase. And then using enter, it will automatically create a column and increase our table to include that. So in the P2, once you make that into an active cell, click on the insert function button and then look for the if function. So if function is still within the logical category, so as long as your category is showing logical, it will show up if. So again, click on OK. So this will give you the function argument. So the first test that we want to use is OR bracket square bracket location square bracket. So we'll type this in and can encourage you to read up on why we're typing this in. So the bracket is going to be a round bracket. So if we don't say round bracket, so if you hear bracket, it will automatically be round bracket. But the square bracket is important and it's different. So we want to enter a square bracket there. Type in location and then close square bracket equal quotation NY for New York, and then a comma, and then a square bracket, not the round bracket. Location close square bracket equal quotation SF, San Francisco, and then close a round bracket like this. So in this case, you can see on the right hand side that the comparison has already been made, so that in this case the location of the employee is either in New York or San Francisco. Suppose that I type this incorrectly. Let's say that I will go back and change the square bracket into a round bracket. And you can see that as a result of that typo, there is an invalid red, pretty noticeable red on here. It just means that somewhere along the line you typed the wrong thing or the syntax is incorrect. So I'll go back and change it into a square bracket, and all of a sudden is now okay. So you want to look at this I guess prompt to make sure that you're not getting an invalid or error. In this case, it's also asking you to collapse the dialog box. So if you click on this, it will collapse it and it will show you just the function that you have just entered. So I will scroll to the left. So this function is what you have entered. We want to expand the dialog box again and use the tab key to move to value if. So in the value if, we want to give it a salary increase. So the logic here is that if this employee lives in New York or lives in San Francisco, we want to give them a 3.5% increase. If they don't live in New York or San Francisco, we want to give them a 2.5% increase. So if the first portion says yes, we want to then multiply their salary. So it's square bracket current salary and square bracket times 0.035. So that is the increase that we want to give if they are in New York, San Francisco. If they are not, then we want to do current salary and bracket times 0.025. So these two conditions will be looked at for each person. So in this case, I want to now click on OK. And you can see that every single cell now has some population. As long as their base salary does match, then it does match a non-zero entity, it will be multiplied by a fraction, either 3.5% or 2.5%. The textbook asks you to highlight the entire P column and change it to the accounting format. So again, if you see the pound sign, it just means that you have to increase the width of your column to show. You can either drag this right or left, or you can stay on the margin and double click like this. Both will give you the width to a point that you can read. So that concludes the exercise in EX 479, and that is towards the end of tutorial 8.1. So we will continue with this because it's the same spreadsheet. We'll just continue to tutorial 8.2. First, tutorial 8.2, the first exercise is to create something called nested ifs. As it turns out, if you create an if statement, you can have one test at the beginning. If the logic condition is met, you can do something. But if the logic condition is not met, you can do a second test and then determine something. So I'll strongly urge you to read up on EX 484, 485, and 486. But for this session recording, we are going to go straight to 487. So it's asking you to make Q1 as active worksheet, active cell, and type in bonus amount. And then enter, it will expand the table. In Q2, as long as it's the active cell, you can click on the insert function right here. And we want to, again, pick on if. So make sure that the category is logical, and then click on if, and then click on OK. And then in this case, we want to have the condition perf rating. So square bracket PERF rating and square bracket equal 1. And then the value we want to have is just whatever is in the X2 cell. So $X, $2, and then tab. So if the performance review rating is 1, we want to just give them the value in X2, which is going to be nothing. So, but if the performance rating is better, either 2 or 3, we want to give them one of these values. Now, the question is, which one should we give? Because this one only tested for one condition, which is 1. Therefore, we want to say, if the person did not get a 1, we want to test again. And then we want to have something called nested ifs. And we will type in if round bracket, square bracket, perf rating, and then close the square bracket equal 2. We then want to give the person the amount in X3, but it will be X $3, and then comma. Now this is what happens if the performance is 2. We will give them $2,500. If the person did not get 2, if the person did not get 1, then that means the person actually got a 3. So we want to give the amount of 7,500. So we want to put X 4 here, and then N with a round bracket. So again, the logic is if a person got 1, we will give them whatever is in X2, which is $0. If a person got 2, we'll give them 2,500. If a person did not get 1, did not get 2, it means that they got 3, and then we'll give them whatever is in the X4 value. So we will click on OK. You can see that the columns are automatically populated, and we can have a quick check at whether or not this matches what we intend to do. So this person got performance 3, performance rating 3, which is the highest. The person got 7,500. This person got 2, and therefore he got 2,500. This person got 1, so therefore she got 0. So that turns out to be exactly what we wish to have. Now, if this test of condition confuse you, I'll urge you to read up on the discussion of the nested ifs, which was in EX 4A4 to 4A6, and following the example. So the textbook wishes you to highlight the entire column and change the formatting into accounting. So that will show us the amount that they got. So let's just say that the company felt very generous. So instead of giving the performance rating 2 people 2,500, the company decides to give them a bit more. So this is EX489 now. So we want to now change this from $2,500 to $2,750. So we can just enter the information here. And if you can just keep your eye on this column. So once you enter, the information is automatically going to be updated from 25 to 2,750 for all of the rating equal to people. So this concludes the EX489 exercise. The next section is something that we looked at in the previous tutorial, especially the VLOOKUP. We are going to re-examine this, and the discussion is in EX489 to EX491 for VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP is looking up at a vertical table and using the information to extract values that you want to input. So this recorded session is going to concentrate on the example, but I will urge you to look up on the lookup function, no pun intended. And we will concentrate on how to do the example starting EX491. So EX491, the example, to find an exact match in the medical rate table using VLOOKUP function, asks you to go into R1 and type in medical plan cost, and using the table function, and then go to R2, cell R2, and hit the insert function right here. And this time, instead of using the logical, we want to change category. The category is going to be lookup and reference. So it will be right here. So click on that. And then you will see lots of functions. We want to go all the way to the bottom to the VLOOKUP. So VLOOKUP or vertical lookup will be used in our case. So we will click on OK. You can see that there are 4 possible values. The first one is lookup value. Second one is a table array that you want to incorporate. And then the third one is the column within that table array that you want to use as index. And the fourth one, range lookup, can either be true, which is going to then look at your value in the approximate, or false, which will look at your value in the exact. So I encourage you to read up on the lookup table. So in this case, the textbook is asking us to enter the lookup value first. So let's see what they want to do in terms of lookup value. So lookup value in EX492, item 5 is going to be J2. So you're looking up at J2, and let's have a quick look at what J2 was. So you can see that J2 in this case is a list of medical plan. So you're looking at the J2 medical plan, and then you want to use the tab key to go to the next one, which is table array. The table array, the textbook wants you to look at is medical rates. So we want to look at the medical rates as well, but what we want to do is go to the worksheet lookup table. So right now we are at employee data. We just want to take a quick look at the lookup table worksheet. So you can see that there is a lookup table here which says medical plan rates, and this is the range that we want to specify. This is the column that we want to look up. So the unfortunately, right now we sort of enter something we don't want, so we want to take it out. So we just want to put medical rates for now here, and then use the tab to go to the next one. So the column index we have seen in the previous lookup table, so let's go back to that one again. The column we want to use is actually called the second one. So the table is from, the entire table is this, but we want to use a column 2 because this is column 1, this will be column 2 in order to utilize the data. So let's again delete whatever creeped in here, we don't want that. So we just want to type in 2 and then use the tab. And then the last one, range lookup, we want to enter the word false. And paradoxically, false would give us a way to look up the exact value. When you compare the lookup, you can either use an approximate value or exact value. So the lookup flag, if it's false, would force the lookup to have an exact match in the table. So that's what we want to do. We want to look at the medical plan here and go to the lookup table, medical rates, and then figure out from there. So we'll click on the OK. So in this case, we will have values given here, and the textbook does want you to change into accounting, but I think the Excel has been very, very patient with us. They have looked at every single column, and so far Excel noticed that we all use accounting format, so Excel sort of just guess at that. But again, if you want to change this to accounting, you just highlight the entire column, go to accounting, and that will give you the format here. So in this case, we have asked the Excel to look at J value and then go back to the lookup table and look at your medical plan and matching it in with the K table here. So everything is therefore reflected here. So that brings us to the end of EX492. Let's have a look at the EX493. So what it's saying is that the data that was entered, looking up at how much each plan will cost, is actually a monthly amount. So we want to, if you can look at the top, there's a formula right here. You want to go to the very end of this, so you just click on the end of the formula and enter times 12. So this will multiply the monthly amount by 12 months, and the result will be a yearly cost right here. So that has been updated in every single cell. Every single cell will now have a times 12. So we want to now proceed to the VLOOKUP functions to find the approximate match, which is explained in EX493 to EX495. The guidance that textbook gave us is at the bottom of EX495, but I would urge you to look up, to read up on the explanation. So we will only do what the textbook has asked us to do on the Excel sheet. In the S1 cell, you want to type in service award payout. And then insert a function. and go to the lookup and reference, and then enter VLOOKUP, which is at the bottom of the table. And then the lookup value here is going to correspond with the years of service. So we want to type in square bracket, years service, and square bracket, tab to the next field. So within the table array, we want to type awards. So the assigned range for this is in D5 to E9 of the lookup table spreadsheet. So we just need to type in awards. Let's have a look at what that entails. So the awards right here is within the D5 to E9. So the first column is the year of service. The second column is the service award. So we just want to use this information now because we went to look at the spreadsheet. The information, the sum value was entered. We want to clean that. And what we want to do is we want to say we are looking at the second column in that table. And then the range lookup is going to, in this case, if we want to use a true for the approximate match, we can either leave this empty, meaning that we don't have to enter a value, or we can just use the word true. But in this case, the textbook has asked us to leave it blank. So please remember that if you leave this blank, then the range lookup value will be true. The implication of the range lookup value being true is Excel is going to look at the table and match it approximately. It will not be exactly, but rather approximately. So let's click on OK. So the information that is going to be populated is the award. So you can see that this person, let's see how long they have been serving in the company. So let's see, the hiring day is 2010. It is going to be calculated automatically, and Excel is going to look up on the table, which is in the lookup table spreadsheet. So it will give the employee $250. So it will automatically look at the year of service approximately, not exactly. And you can read up on EX 465 on the approximate value. So it is looking at the value that was specified and then go upwards until the next value. Please look at the textbook to understand the details. So that brings us to the bottom of EX 496 and a exercise on the VLOOKUP. So the next one we want to do is actually called HLOOKUP. HLOOKUP, it works very similarly as VLOOKUP, but instead of vertical as in V, HLOOKUP is a horizontal lookup. So the information that it will work on is this one. Under lookup table, it is the dental plan. So you can see that unlike this, where the table goes up and vertically, this table goes horizontally from the left to the right. So keep that in mind, but the syntax is very similar. So let's go back to the employee data. And starting from EX 498, the textbook wishes us to go to T1, enter dental plan cost. And in T2, we will insert function. And we will look at the category lookup and reference. And instead of a V lookup, we will go to H lookup for horizontal lookup. And we'll click on OK. So the first data that we want to look at is their, let's see, is K2, so dental plan. So under K2, we will look at what kind of dental plan it has. So we enter K2, then tab, and then dental rates. So dental rates table was already defined, and it is in cell H4 to K5 in the lookup table. And once we define that, we want to look at which row to look up. So we have two, if you go back to lookup tables, you can see that there are two rows. One is the dental plan, one is monthly premium. We want to enter the information in monthly premium. So again, because we just went to the different spreadsheet, we want to delete that information. So we want to look at the second row, and this one now we want to enter false because we actually want a exact match in this case. So you can see that on the right hand side, it will look at all the conditions and it will actually generate a value right here. So if we click on OK, you can see that there is now value. So if you see the pound sign, you just have to open it up a little bit. This amount is a monthly amount, so the textbook asks you to go to the end of the formula and just type in times 12, and that will give us the yearly amount. So just make sure that the width of the column is sufficient for us to look at. So this brings us to the end of the bottom of EX499, and this is how you would do a horizontal lookup. The last function the textbook asks us to look at in tutorial 8.2 is a if error. So if error is a check to do something other than say an error that shows up. So in this case, it asks you to look at row 54. So we'll go down a little bit to 54. So this is row 54. You can see that in the column R, we got an error because somehow the information wasn't matching what the condition is. So this particular lookup did not generate anything, and instead it just say not available. We don't want this. We actually want a very specific error message. So the textbook says that if you don't want the error message like this, there's definitely error, you can change it. And the textbook directs us to double click on the cell, and you can see that there is a formula here. So we want to operate on the left, the top corner right here. Textbook asks you to click to the right of the equal sign. So it's right here to the right equal sign, and type in if error, and then a round bracket to begin enter the error. So this, you can see that the if error has a value and value if error. So this is the value that was there, and we want to leave it alone. But now at the end of this value, we want to type comma, quotation, invalid code. Okay, like this, and then round bracket, and then enter. So you can see that the entire column has been updated. You can see that the invalid code and if error has been added, and you can see that instead of saying NA, it is just showing invalid code, which is a lot better than NA. And this entire column has been updated. But in EX502, the textbook is asking you, well, why had it appear as NA anyway? What was the problem? So it asks you to go to J54. So we'll go to J54, and we see that there was a family 1500. It should have been family 2500. So this was the error that was entered. So the textbook asks you to change that from family 1500 to family 2500. So we'll change that, and you can see that all of a sudden the invalid code has gone away, and it has given us the right value under this column. So that brought us to the end of EX502, which is the end of our exercises. I would strongly suggest that you take a look at the textbook and read up on the if, and, or, VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, and if error functions to gain some more knowledge. Thank you.